about today is the fact that there at Mountain Meadows in southern Utah, there are still 4 mass graves on that ground. The gentleman on set with me right now, their descendants are laying, their bones are laying there with just a bunch of rocks on top of them. They are not allowed to go in and to properly honor and inter their own ancestors because the Mormon Church owns the property and will not allow it. That is outrageous. And so this foundation is trying to get Mountain Meadows, the land, turned over to a neutral third party, the federal government, for stewardship so that they can get access, so that the story can be told, that monuments can be erected, and history can be brought back from almost oblivion, because this story in American history has just absolutely been pushed to the bottom. Most people don't even know that it happened. And so Scott has is an attorney by trade, and so he can give us the technical side of it. Ron is really the man with the foundation that is dealing with the stewardship. So why don't I turn it over to you, Scott? Why don't you kind of give us a legal aspect, and then I'll turn over to you, Ron, and kind of talk about what's going on in that regard.
I don't know how legal an aspect I can provide. First off, I would like to say that the foundation, one of the primary purposes that we were organized initially was to seek a right to unrestricted public access to the massacre site. At that time, the LDS Church only owned and controlled what's known as the Carlton Cairn, the one mass grave that had been marked back when Carlton interred the truth. The others just had piles of rocks on them, and it's scattered out about a little over a mile, mile and a quarter through the length of the Mountain Meadows Valley. The other sites, the other 3 known grave sites, were on private property, and we couldn't access those at all. The Carlton Cairn, the LDS Church would allow us to access it occasionally, but it was permissive access, and still to this day, in order for us to go there and either have some sort of a ceremony or to memorialize our dead in the way we'd like, we have to get the permission and blessing of the LDS Church, and frankly, we resent that. Secondly, I'd like for your viewers to understand that we want respect and not reparations from the LDS Church. The LDS Church profited handsomely from the massacre, but right now we would just like to see our people properly protected, properly remembered. It's an important story for the United States of America.
It is
a story that deserves to be honestly told. It can never be honestly told so long as the LDS is in control of the site. So we would like to have it. Our preferred option would be full-blown federal stewardship, so that this were a national monument. That would require the LDS Church to gift that property to the Department of Interior, and then at that point in time it would be forever stewarded, maintained in perpetuity by the U.S. government, National Park Service, under the auspices or jurisdiction of the Department of Interior. We have...
Let me hold you up just a second. Production, could you put up, get ready to put up slide number 9, get it ready. Go ahead, continue, because I want to amplify on the aspect of.
But folks, as far as the different orders or levels of federal protection that you can enjoy, a site can be nominated to the National Register of Historic Places. That's really just an honorific designation. The Mountain Meadows, the entire Mountain Meadows area, comprised of some 7,500 acres, is currently designated to the National Register of Historic Places. However, there's absolutely no restriction on what they can do with the property. They can bulldoze down any monument they want. Right now, and we experienced in 1999, that the landowner, i.e. the LDS Church, could disinter the remains and then assert ownership of the funerary objects that were wrongfully withheld.
Let me hold you up on that, folks. To fully understand what Scott just said, in 1999, the Mormon Church brought a backhoe in, and they were going to build a little monument there about Mountain Meadows Massacre. And in the second bite of that backhoe, they dug up a bunch of the skeletons, the remains of their ancestors. And in some funerary objects, so buttons and other things that were part, and those were declared to be belong to the Mormon Church. They killed these people, And yet the bones and the buttons and other things that still remain on the site that were the objects of these people, the Mormon Church, who is the murderers, has ownership. This is insane. This is just absolutely insane.
Well, it was self-asserted ownership. Now, we legally challenged their claim through the state of Utah. The Utah state archaeologist, a gentleman named Kevin Jones, agreed with us, the Descendants, that the LDS Church, just by virtue of being the owners of that property, even though the disturbance of the remains had recurred under an Utah Antiquities Act permit, and under the terms of that Antiquity Act permit, the landowner owns, and that's the way the LDS Church, or the vehicle the LDS Church used to assert ownership of these funerary objects. They didn't even tell us that they had not reinterred those. You need to understand that once the remains were disturbed, they attempted to take them to BYU. There was a protest. We got a forensic archaeologist out of the University of Utah who came in and did an objective third-person analysis. Then they amended the Antiquities Act permit, put all the bones back, but they withheld, and it's 3 little buttons. They took everything these people owned, including their clothing, back in 1857. And now the LDS Church, a multi-billion-dollar corporation, has to claim, in order to be in control and prove that they're still bigger than the story, bigger than the victims, bigger than the families of the descendants, that they own 3 little buttons. And that's all it is. But under Utah law, under current standards of archaeological practice, those sorts of remains or funerary objects are considered part of the remains. They belong to the dead. But the LDS Church, simply because I don't understand why they need to do that, how they can be so big and act so little. It mystifies me still.
Scott, you know, your passion is bouncing off of me, and I hope, folks, that those of you that watch our show every week, and you know me, you know I don't get riled up very often. I'm riled up, and for all the right reasons. This is such an atrocity. And you know what? This clearly shows what Scott has been talking about right here, that the Mormon Church wants control of everything. Their people, stake president, bishops, 60 Mormons were the ones who brutally murdered these people. And yet the Mormon Church has to have control of this because they don't want the truth out. It just shows one thing. And I hope my finger is pointing right to, I hope Mormon apostles, and I hope their prophet is watching this. Because you're not a church. You are a business. Only businesses protect their image. If you were a church and you were following what Jesus Christ said to do, then why wouldn't these families be allowed to have access to their own dead? I'll tell you why. You know, people wear little bracelets that have WWJD on it. What would Jesus do? Well, in the context of the Mormon Church, it's what would Joseph do? We know that Joseph Smith lied. He was treacherous. His reputation is there to be seen. He was anything but what the Mormon Church says he was today. And Gordon B. Hinckley, the prophet of the Mormon Church, has the ability to right this wrong, and he won't do it. His words were, this is not in the best interest of the Mormon Church. Who cares about the interest of the Mormon Church? This is justice. This is to right a wrong with these family members here that don't even have access to their own dead. Folks, I tell you, my blood is boiling. You know what, Control, I told you to have number 9 ready, and let me back this up. Let's put the address up there, slide number 5, so that people can write this address down, and then I'm going to follow it with the phone number so that you can call the Mormon Church. There's only one thing the Mormon Church understands, and that's bad PR. So that when their missionaries show up on your doorstep, you say, I don't want any part of an organization, a business, because that's what the Mormon Church is. It is not a church. It does not follow the teachings of Jesus Christ, or they would right this wrong. Up on the screen for you right now, this is the person to get in contact with, and I'm running out of air. I'm so excited here. Marlon Jensen, LDS Church, 35 Northwest Temple Street. Folks, write this address down. Don't just sit there and be a bump on a log. If you want to get involved and you want to right this wrong, they need to hear, because this is the only thing that they'll respond to, is bad public relations. That's the address. Keep it up on there, and now let's go to slide number 6, and then, you know what, Ron?